Okay, so let's talk about the NAR lawsuit and how it affects buyers. So I wanted to wait to talk about this, and look, I think we're going to see more and more changes and information coming out as we get closer and closer to the drop date, which is mid-July. Mid-July, yeah. Okay, so what's going on? So first, what is the NAR lawsuit? So basically, there were some sellers that sued brokerages saying that they had no idea that there was an option for them not to pay the buyer's commission and that this is problematic. Words like cartel, price fixing, lots of big words used, DOJ involved. It's a big deal. And look, I don't want to try to summarize the lawsuit. Look it up if you're curious, okay? The bottom line is this: it's changing the way commissions are dealt with in the United States for real estate agents. Now, in fairness, I've always known that the agent's commission is negotiable, right? And there's lots of states where the real estate agents are like, yeah, we always tell the sellers that, we tell everybody that. But there's isolated incidents where the sellers didn't realize they had a choice. And to be fair, buyers don't really understand how real estate agents get paid. So let's talk about that. So first of all, traditionally, prior to what's happening now, the way that buyers agents have been paid is when the seller sells the house, they are paying a total commission, which in many cases is divided between the listing agent and the buyer's agent. Okay, now let's be real about this. This is going into the cost of the house. So is the seller paying it? Sure. Is the buyer paying it? Yeah, because of the cost of the house, right? Like, there's no sugarcoating on that. Now, a lot of people feel that buyers would be horrified to realize that agents are making 2 to 3% off of their purchase, right? $700,000 house, the agent's getting 3%, that's $21,000. Wow, right? Look, go to Reddit. That's what people are screaming about. I mean, if you're selling the house, you're like, oh my God, I'm getting hit by the seller and the buyer, right? Okay, I get it. Every time a house is trading in the United States right now, there's a 5 to 6% surcharge being tacked on. Now, look, first of all, do agents really make that much? No, most of them are not keeping 3%, and there's way more into that. We'll do a video about all the people picking agents' pockets, which is part of this bigger problem. But for your situation, you're like, well, wait, what does this mean? Okay, so basically what's going to happen is that in mid-July, MLS can no longer list how much the seller's willing to pay the buyer's agent. That's it. That's it. And look, what I think is going to happen, and I've talked to agents about this, and I'm like, are you worried? Are you concerned? And there is some level of concern because you've got to look at it from the buyer's agent perspective. You're not paying them anything right now, an hourly rate, anything. You could look at houses for 3 years and they never get paid. That is one of the reasons that on each transaction they make so much, is because there's so much work they're not paid for. Do they luck out sometimes and get that buyer that's the one-hit wonder? Yeah, but that's not typically what happens, okay? So there is some concern about that. There's talks about, will there be hourly services, a la carte being offered, all of this. But it's very similar to for sale by owner. So with for sale by owner, the owner's trying to sell their house. Sometimes they're offering a commission, sometimes they're not. You see that those houses have less people going to them. It's that simple. And MLS is saying, hey, look, we don't want sellers to be discriminated against because they're not going to pay the buyer's agent enough. And that's fair, okay? So people go, well, as a lender, I go, how the hell are the buyers supposed to come up with cash for this now too? Seriously, because it's like, okay, down payment, closing costs, some markets you're paying over appraisal, like it's just another cost. But I don't think it's actually going to go to that. So I think here's what we're seeing. So first of all, what you're going to see is across the country, agents are going to be having you sign brokerage agreements that say that you're willing to pay their commission, of XYZ if the seller won't. Now, there's no consistent template in the United States, and that is problematic. So I do think that we will see a government entity come in nationwide and have a consistent form. Because, for instance, with VA, they can't pay. It's not okay with a VA loan, but they're being handed these forms that the brokerages are making everybody sign, but it doesn't actually apply to them. That's problematic. Also, there's a potential risk in that, let's say that you sign this and it says, they go, oh, well, the seller usually pays. Usually, okay? I think there should be a clause where, if you don't want to pay the agent and you need the seller to pay them, there's a clause that says, I only want to look at a house where the seller will pay your commission, right? But then again, it's a negotiation, and I think we'll see that as well. So I think if a seller is not offering to pay a commission, what you're going to see is part of the offer will be written up where, just like normal, let's say the house is listed at 500, buyer to offer 500, seller to pay 2% towards buyer's agent, it will be written in that way. Now, one of the really big concerns, because people are like, oh, veterans are going to get screwed. And I was like, no, they're not. There'll be some isolated incidents, but the people who are really going to get screwed by this are the 3% down borrowers who need the seller to pay closing costs. Because prior to about 2 days ago, there's a cap. So you can only get up to 3% from the seller to go towards that bucket, and a realtor's commission would have fallen in that bucket. They've moved it out of that bucket. So basically, I think what we'll see is two things. Number one, we're going to see agents advertising on different sites what the seller will pay. Whether it's individual brokerages, some site pops up, there will be something there. If that doesn't happen, I think that we'll just have agents. A buyer's agent's job will be to call everything before you see it and go, hey, is the seller offering a buyer's agent commission, right? Okay. And then the other one will be, if they're not, it's going to be a negotiation. So, it's too soon to tell how this is going to impact the market. I do think that, as buyers, there may be houses, and I think about like the jumbo market especially, or really competitive markets where you're already paying over, it's just another cost. And if you can't afford the cost of the agent, there's no way the seller is going to cover it. So at that point, you're going to be going to the open house, you're going to have an attorney drawing up the contract, and you're going to need a really strong lender, okay? And I want to be really clear. Lenders cannot do a real estate agent's job unless they're licensed to do so. But a strong lender can at least protect you from super stupid stuff. So I think that will come into play. Am I getting my real estate license? No, because I honestly think that it's going to change the way real estate's done, but I don't think it's going to have the impact that a lot of people were hoping for. And when I say a lot of people were hoping for, it's the people who want to sell their house and not pay a real estate agent commission. I think that if you're in a competitive market, yeah, totally, that will happen. But I think if you're not in a competitive market, you're still going to need those buyer's agents to bring people in your house to help you sell that house. So overall, there's been a lot of hype about, people are telling buyers, oh, well, act now while supplies last. But I'm talking to agents around the country. I haven't heard any panic, anxiety. It sounds like brokerages are trying to find a way to make sure it's transparent and that people are compensated fairly. So questions, comments, I do think that people who have more money will just be paying their agents out of pocket. They'll be negotiating with those agents, $900,000 house, maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 2%. Who knows? So don't be scared of all the noise you're hearing right now, because that's what it is. And the reason there's so many people doing scare tactics about all of this is because it's become the status quo and they don't want to disrupt the status quo. But I honestly do believe that disruption's good. It's good. It's good. It's good for consumers. It's good for the industry. This will shake out some lazy real estate agents, and we need it. The same thing happened to the mortgage industry with Dodd-Frank decades ago. We're still here. People still need mortgages. And I do think that a good buyer's agent is worth their weight in gold. And I don't think, if I was looking for a house, would I be using a buyer's agent? Yeah, and I'd want a shark negotiator. and I wouldn't do an a la carte service. And anyone who watches this channel knows, like, I definitely am not gonna bullshit you guys on this. My business doesn't come from real estate agents. It comes from you guys. You guys come direct to me. But don't be freaked out by the NAR lawsuit. You know, there will be some things to watch out for. Like, I am afraid that there'll be some agents that will double dip, where you'll have a brokerage agreement where it's saying the buyer needs to pay, you know, like they would get a total of 6% commission for the buyer's agent, and you could have a seller paying 3%, but they're trying to shake you down for 3%. So I think there'll be something, but I'm very hopeful that there'll be a nationwide template that agents have to use for this. I think that's really the only way we protect the American consumer throughout this process. So I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching, and questions, comments, I'll be updating on this, but I just wanted to wait to kind of see, because at first everyone was freaking out, but it feels like everyone will still be able to buy a house. Veterans are going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. Thanks for watching.